Tonight's story begins on a quiet stretch of California highway where nothing seemed unusual at first. It was April 5th, 1970, late at night, the kind of hour when the roads begin to empty and patrol cars spend more time watching taillights disappear into the darkness than responding to emergencies. In the area near Newhall and Valencia, north of Los Angeles, the California Highway Patrol was doing what it always did. Officers were monitoring traffic, responding to small calls, and handling the endless routine that comes with highway policing. Nothing about that night suggested it would soon become one of the darkest moments in the history of California law enforcement. Before we move deeper into the story, I want to say something personal. About 20 years ago, I was rather personally close to some California Highway Patrol officers. Spending time around them gave me a glimpse into what their job really meant. It was not just traffic stops and tickets. It was long nights, dangerous situations, and a constant awareness that the routine could turn deadly without warning. Because of that, the Newhall incident has always hit a little closer to home for me. When you know people who wear that uniform, stories like this stop being abstract history and start feeling very real. The chain of events that night began with something that sounded minor. Earlier in the evening, a man named Bobby Davis was driving north on Interstate 5 when he made an illegal U-turn across the highway median. In doing so, he nearly collided with another car carrying a serviceman named Ivory Jack Tidwell and his wife. The two vehicles stopped, and the situation quickly turned tense. Davis pulled out a gun during the argument. After a brief confrontation, he drove away, but the shaken couple immediately reported the incident to the California Highway Patrol. They gave officers a description of the suspect vehicle, a red Pontiac Grand Prix. That report was treated as a relatively low-level call. The suspect was wanted in connection with a misdemeanor incident involving a firearm, but it was not yet known that the men involved were heavily armed career criminals. Officers in the area began watching for the red Pontiac. Not long after the report went out, two CHP officers, Walt Frago and Roger Gore, spotted the vehicle near Castaic. They were partners riding together in a patrol car and began following the Pontiac as it left the freeway. The suspects pulled into the parking lot of Jay's Coffee Shop near a standard gas station along Henry Mayo Drive. The officers initiated a traffic stop. At first, everything looked normal. The officers ordered the two men to step out of the vehicle. Bobby Davis exited the driver's side and walked toward the front of the car where Officer Gore began searching him. Meanwhile, Officer Frago moved toward the passenger side carrying a shotgun. His shotgun was held in what is called the port arms position, the stock near his hip and the barrel pointed upward. That was when everything changed. The passenger, Jack Twinning, suddenly stepped out of the car and opened fire with a .357 Magnum revolver. The shots came without warning. Officer Frago was struck twice before he could even bring his shotgun into position. He died almost instantly. Officer Gore reacted immediately. He drew his own revolver and fired back at Twinning. In the chaos of that moment, however, his attention was focused entirely on the man shooting at him. He lost track of Bobby Davis, who had been standing beside him during the search. Davis pulled a concealed revolver from his waistband and fired at point-blank range. Officer Gore was killed within seconds. In less than half a minute, two young highway patrol officers were dead. Backup was already on the way. Another patrol car carrying officers George Allen and James Pence arrived on scene moments later. As soon as they stepped into the situation, the suspects opened fire. Again, the suspects had stocked their vehicle with a surprising number of weapons, far more than the officers carried. Davis grabbed a sawed-off shotgun from inside the Pontiac. Twinning switched to a semi-automatic pistol. Officer Allen fired his shotgun rapidly toward the suspects, but the exchange was chaotic. In the process of firing so quickly, he even ejected a live round accidentally. One of his pellets struck Twinning in the forehead, but caused only a superficial wound. Allen then switched to his service revolver and continued fighting. Davis fired the shotgun and struck Allen with buckshot, causing fatal injuries. Meanwhile, Officer Pence was engaged in a gunfight with Twinning. Pence emptied his revolver but missed his target. Twinning returned fire and struck Pence multiple times. Pence fell to the ground but continued trying to reload his revolver one round at a time. At that time, speed loaders were not standard equipment for CHP officers. As the gunfight raged, a civilian named Gary Ness happened to arrive at the scene. Um, Ness was a former Marine on his way to work. When he realized what was happening, he ran toward the fallen officers and tried to help. Ness attempted to drag Officer Alling to safety but could not move him. He grabbed a nearby shotgun and tried to fire at the suspects, but the weapon was empty. Then he picked up a service revolver and fired at the suspect's car, striking it several times. One fragment from a bullet even lodged in Davis's chest, though it did not stop him. Ness soon ran out of ammunition and had to take cover. Back near the patrol car, Officer Pence was still attempting to reload his revolver. As he inserted the final cartridge and began closing the cylinder, Twinning approached from behind and shot him twice in the head at point-blank range. 4 officers had now been killed. Additional patrol cars soon arrived and more gunfire was exchanged. Under the pressure of the growing police response, the suspects fled the scene in separate directions. Bobby Davis eventually stumbled across a camper parked along a nearby dirt road. After a brief struggle with the owner, he pistol-whipped the man and stole the vehicle. A short time later, deputies from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department located the camper and stopped it. Davis had no loaded weapons left and surrendered. Jack Twinning fled into a nearby neighborhood where he broke into a house and took the homeowner hostage. The house was quickly surrounded by sheriff's deputies. For several hours, negotiators spoke with Twinning over the telephone. During those conversations, Twinning openly bragged about the killings. At one point, he even described how he had taken advantage of Officer Frago's position with the shotgun. Eventually, Twinning released the hostage. Deputies fired tear gas into the house and prepared to enter. As officers moved inside, Twinning used one of the stolen shotguns to take his own life. In the aftermath, Bobby Davis was tried and convicted for the murders of the 4 officers. He was initially sentenced to death. However, a later Supreme Court ruling invalidated many existing death penalty laws, and his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment without parole. Decades later, in 2009, Davis was found dead in his prison cell in what authorities ruled a suicide. The 4 officers killed that night were George Alling, Walter Frago, Roger Gore, and James Pence. All 4 were very young. Each had less than 2 years of service with the California Highway Patrol. All were married. Together, they left behind 7 children. The Newhall incident had a profound impact on law enforcement training across the United States. Police agencies studied the events of that night carefully. Changes were made to firearms training, tactical procedures, and the way officers approached high-risk traffic stops. One major change involved training officers to reload under extreme stress conditions. Another involved new strategies for handling suspects who might be heavily armed. Those changes came too late for the officers involved that night, but they shaped police training for generations afterward. When people hear about incidents like this, it is easy to focus only on the gunfight itself. But the deeper lesson is how quickly ordinary moments can turn into tragedy. A simple traffic stop, a routine patrol shift, a call that seemed minor at first, all of it transformed in seconds. And when I think about that night, I cannot help remembering the CHP officers I knew years ago. Men who did the same job, wore the same uniform, and faced the same risks every time they pulled over a car on the side of a dark highway. That is why the Newhall Massacre still echoes more than 50 years later. It reminds us that behind every badge is a human life. And sometimes the routine can become history before anyone even realizes what is happening.